This is the Memory and Resistance Laboratory podcast. I am Latipa, Director of the Memory and Resistance Laboratory and Associate Professor of Media and Cultural Studies at the University of California, Riverside. The Memory and Resistance Laboratory is a hub for anti-racist, decolonial, and feminist of color artistic research. In this podcast series, Memory and Resistance in the Time of COVID, students from UCR interview people across the fields of education, art, medicine, and labor organizing to ask about the larger political, social, historical, and economic impacts of our current circumstances for vulnerable communities. In this episode, we are joined by Malini Gadepally, a fourth grade teacher in the Cupertino Union School District. She is interviewed by her daughter, Smarana Gadepally, who recently graduated from the University of California, Riverside with a degree in theater, film, and television.
So, thank you for joining me today. This is Mrs. Malini Gadepally. She is a fourth grade teacher at Regnar Elementary School in Cupertino, California. So, I just wanted to kind of have a little talk with you because things have definitely changed. We are amidst a global pandemic, and I think that a lot of people's everyone's lives have changed, but I'd like to hear the point of view of a teacher as an educator, kind of like how you've been dealing with it, how you've been teaching your students, stuff like that. So I'm going to ask you some questions and you can answer them. First, I wanted to start with, what is your professional background?
Okay, so first I'd like to thank you for having me and for interviewing me. And so to give you a bit of background, my name is Malini Gadepally, like you said, and I grew up here in Los Angeles. So I'm a product of the California public school system, which I'm a proud teacher of also. And I studied in San Jose State. I did an undergrad in India and then an undergrad in San Jose State, and in liberal studies, which is the precursor to the credential program. And I actually did the credential program as a young mom with you and your brother. So I had my live guinea pig, so to speak, in the house. And I've always wanted to be a teacher, so it was my dream. So I totally used my academic background to funnel me into this profession of my choice.
Okay, so you did your credential at San Jose State. Okay, and so what grade level did you start teaching at?
So when I student taught, I did like a half a year of kindergarten, first grade, and they're very cute, but I felt like jumping off a cliff because now I realize that teachers have patience, but their patience is limited to certain age groups.
Yeah.
I realized mine was geared for a little older children. So then I did student teaching in fifth grade, and I thought, wow, that's the sweet spot. So I thought, and then I got a job in third grade, which is 8-year-olds. Loved it, did it for 7 years, and then moved on to fourth grade. So I'll be starting my seventh year of fourth grade. And so it's an even split between third and fourth. I love fourth grade.
Oh, is that what you like better?
9-year-olds, yeah. It's they're very cute. They totally get it. They get my sarcastic humor. They are very inquisitive about the world. They love working. It's funny. You would think kids don't like working, but if you interest them and you get them to like subjects, they love working and they enjoy doing it.
Wow. So like you prefer fourth grade over third grade. You think that that age group is kind of
Yeah,
your
I think
sweet
it's my
spot?
sweet spot. Yeah, it's my
Okay.
sweet. I don't seem to lose patience with this age group.
Oh, well, that's good. That's important. And not everyone can deal with kids because, it's either you do it or you don't. Um, but like, how have things changed for you over the past few months as, personally, but also, professionally as a teacher? Like, how has your journey been so far?
So I have to say, on a personal level, It's been great having you home. It's been
Hmm.
great having your brother, because once you have adult children, it's a rarity to have them home. Um, and then the opposite side of that is I miss my parents because they're older, so we haven't been visiting, and they live in Los Angeles. So that's the opposite side of this whole COVID situation on a personal level. On a professional level, I have to say that it turned our worlds upside down, because you don't social distance with children. They're always in your face. There's a whole crowd at 33 students, and they're always asking questions. And the whole joy of teaching and being in front of the class and explaining concepts, and in real time, they're being able to come and ask me if they have doubts, has been very frustrating for them not to be able to ask, and for me not to be there for them when they need it. So it's a huge mind shift, I have to
Yeah.
say. um, when we first started, it was like, what? Like, I teach all subject areas, right? Science, social studies, writing, language arts, grammar, math, everything. And then to take each subject area and turn it into something that kids can learn from an online medium was insane. And I remember we had online courses for weeks that we would sign up for and learn how to take videos and how to, do Google Meets, and then, set up. I already had Google Classroom, the upper grades, we all did, but how to post assignments and then create tests and take the given material that we had and turn it into something that would be meaningful for the kids. So it's been a very interesting and a very, very challenging situation.
Yeah, understandably.
And
That
how do
makes
you, yeah, like, for example, sorry to interrupt, but
no
for
worries.
example, like in a classroom, you have discipline over the kids. I have 33 kids, and when I talk, they're quiet, they're listening. On a Zoom call or a Google Class meet, they're typing on the side. I'm like, guys, you can't be chatting. It's like talking in class when somebody else is talking. And so there's a whole level of discipline. And then we have to talk about etiquette in our Google Class meet, because there are kids eating cereal or sitting in bed and rubbing their eyes because they just woke up. And it's been hard for them, and I think very tiring to stare at a screen for so long. And so it's just, and then they turn their icons on so you can't see them, so you don't know if they're
Mm.
listening to you or they're playing around. They're kids. What the older children see relevance in academics and then studying, but younger children, it's like, okay, I'm bored now, so now what? So
Yeah,
that's been hard to be able to keep their attention.
that makes complete
And
sense. I mean, as a college student, sometimes I do roll out of bed and attend class, not gonna lie. It's a weird situation, but I think that for college students, we are more motivated and we're more accountable, because if we mess up, if we don't, catch up with our work, it's on us. And that's the like we have to be accountable for our actions, but I don't think that kids get that yet, because
no,
I
they don't.
hated school as a kid. I'm not gonna lie. If I had to do this in like fourth grade, I would not be happy. So I guess it is definitely a balancing act. And with kids, it's very, very different. And that leading into my next question is, how are your students adapting to learning from home?
So I have to say, I spoke to many of my colleagues about this too, and it's interesting to see how some children have just lapped it up. They enjoy the whole online experience. They're very savvy at it. They, change texts and fonts and colors and add pictures, and, they like the whole online presence. And maybe they were shy in class, but this is a way for them to be expressive and to show voice in a different kind of way. So students I would have never thought would have been super, out there, because they have to post assignments on Seesaw, and I've had students put background music when they're posting assignments and showing stuffed animals and then moving it aside and then showing their work and then putting the stuffed animal again. So very creative solutions. And then I have those who are like explaining things. I've even had a few students put on makeup. They're 9, and then dress up for the whole video experience. So you could just see their personalities coming out. But I've also had students where they found it amazingly hard to do their work. And the big thing about this is I can't communicate. I mean, we have Google class meets every day, and I see them for an hour, but we have what we call sharing. So they have public speaking, and they're doing a lot of it. So I have a group of students who are presenting every day on a given topic. And so that's one part of our class. And then I give announcements, or we grade something together, some math quiz or something, or a crossword puzzle. It's easier for me to just give them the answers than to record it and put it. And so the 1 hour flies by very fast, especially when we're used to having 7 hours a day. 1 hour is a fraction of that time. And so the rest of the time they're on their own. And I send out an online schedule with links and with assignments, and I put up videos and to explain like the math lesson for the day, and they have the book with them, and it's a workbook, and then a correcting video for the previous day's lesson. But I would say only a third of them are very thorough about it, where I get their work right away. And then I have a third that does it maybe later on in the day, in the night, tomorrow, a day or two later. And then I have a bunch that absolutely do not turn in work. And so the big drag is now I have to keep bothering the parents, who I know are insanely busy with their own jobs or younger children. And I have to say, friendly reminder, but so-and-so hasn't turned in assignments. What's going on? Because I think the biggest thing is accountability in terms of school is on, it's not summer vacation. And so how are you accountable? And let me just show you a sample of my grade sheets where I am writing assignments and checking it off. So it's an insanely detailed amount of work. It's hours more than a normal work day.
Yeah.
And it's very challenging to reach out to those kids. And when I have consistent ones, I've been told that some of my students have been depressed by the situation, so they're not even able to get out of bed. Then I realized this whole, just as adults internalize things, children do, and they don't understand the whole situation. So then mental health is another big issue. You don't know how the situations are at home. I've had my own students, even though they're 9, they're the babysitters because they have younger siblings, and both parents are working, and they're saying both are on conference calls, so they have to babysit. And then because they're kids, they're being awesome at being good babysitters, older brothers and sisters, but then they forget about their assignments and their own schoolwork. So then I have to do like Google Hangout meets with the parents and the child, giving strategies on how to help, like, why don't you write it down? The time doesn't matter really, but let's do it chunk by chunk, take breaks between your work, and make sure that it's not all on screen all the time. You do a little bit of book work, a little screen work, go play. We have PE, we have online PE or
Online PE? How do you do that?
So the PE teacher does live sessions and they follow along, almost like you watch an exercise video. So there's PE sessions every single day that are recorded, that the PE teacher records.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and then regular PE is twice a week for an hour. So he has regular PE class 3 times a week, and then they join in on that. We have our art teacher that posts live lessons where they draw and they go along. Then we have a music teacher that has all kinds of cool, the cup game, and has with plastic cups that you can do a beat while you're listening to the song. Or she even came into our Google Meet and she said, okay, I'm going to play music, draw what you feel. So we're trying to be creative, not just academics, but mix it up and try to make it interesting. Like they watch a cartoon and then they tell me 3 things they liked and learned, but the cartoon is based on the Transcontinental Railroad, so it's still history. So we're trying to mix it up, use Bill Nye videos for science, have them do a few experiments at home. So we're trying to make it more relevant. I would say that because of technology today, we're able to give a lot more instruction online, but the human component, especially for children, is so huge, because a lot of them would come to me. Sometimes they knew the answer, but they just wanted that attention. So they'd kind of snuggle up to my shoulder and didn't get it. And when I explained, of course, I knew that they got it, but they just wanted the attention. Then there are those who don't get it, but they feel, too shy or too proud to come and ask. And so there's all kinds. There's 33 lovely personalities. And with them in real life, you can gauge as a teacher who needs it, who needs a little more attention, who needs a little pat on the back. They all do, but at which time of the day and stuff. And here I feel they're much more secluded. They don't have their social network of their friends, which they miss a lot. So I think part of their coming onto the Google class every day for the hour is they get to see each other, you know.
Oh
We
yeah.
have a little grid view, so we have the whole lot of us on there. And then sometimes a librarian will come and do a read aloud. And so we're trying to keep the normalcy of school, but the social connections, I think, is the biggest missing component, whether it's with the teacher, with their friends, with other kids from other classrooms, is a huge piece, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Academics is a part of life. It is not life, right? There's so much more. They learn how to do group work. They learn how to care for others. They learn how to be empathetic, sympathetic, helpful to a classmate who might need help in a certain area that they happen to be strong in. They learn teamwork, you know, all kinds of things that I think are so much more important, the soft skills, than the actual academics. Because if you miss out on a bit of academics, you can always catch up in life. But if you miss out on the ethic of hard work, of consistency, of discipline, of, you know, the social connections, of learning to get along with people, whether they're your best friend or not, those are the things I think are the invisible soft skills that kids are really missing out on.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for kids, because they have recess, they go outside. Kids need to run around, they need to play their sports, and the contact is very important, I think. So I can understand why some students of yours or children in general are getting depressed. Mental health is of
Absolutely.
course extremely important
Yeah.
even with children. So but I'm glad that they're able to do PE and art, and you're still trying to keep that sense of normalcy, but
Absolutely.
in a virtual setting, which is challenging. But I think that everyone's slowly adapting to it, because we don't know how much longer this is going to last, and we got to do your best, right, when it comes to the kids. And moving on to my next question, which is for you. I'm sure you spend a lot of time. I've kind of seen you at night recording little tutorials and videos, and I'm talking about like midnight. So clearly, you have a lot going on as a teacher to prepare to teach your students every single day. So why don't you walk me through a day in the life of a teacher during COVID-19?
Oh, how exciting. So I usually start my day at 6:30 a.m.
Wow.
Um, and then I literally brush and come and check my mails, because parents are sending mails at all times. And once I check my email, then I have an online learning schedule my colleague and I put together. We're both fourth grade teachers. And so I go through the schedule to see if there's any missing items. And also because like I said, I teach all subject areas, so I need to make sure that every subject is covered, that we have the right pages down, the right videos in place to teach that, and the right instructions. Because in teaching, we have what is called subplans. So if we're sick or we're not able to make it to a day, we literally have to write down every single page and thing and what to say to the kids to our substitute teacher. And subplans take so long. It's a running joke amongst us teachers that it's better to go to work with a high fever. I mean, not during COVID time, but normal time. We're just joking that it's easier to go to work with sick than to write a subplan and for the next day, because it takes so long and it's so arduous. And the thing about this whole online teaching is we're literally writing subplans, because we're writing to our students what they should do. So for example, an example of my online schedule is we start at 8:30. So 8:30 to 9:30 is language arts time. So give them websites to go and do grammar, or give them go and listen to a link, because we're doing a literature book, so one chapter of the book, then upload that chapter of the book for them to read. Also upload the dictionary for the words in that one chapter so they can reference it, because it's a higher level reading book, and they have to do all of that in that 1 hour. Again, it's for those who wake up early. They could maybe sleep in and then they would do that later,
Yeah.
but it's just a tentative schedule, and it's supposed to help have some kind of normalcy for them, but then it's flexible depending on their family's needs, right?
Yeah.
So 8:30 to 9:30 is language arts. Then 9:30 to 10:30 is our Google Class Meet. And so then I put out which students are going to be sharing for that day, For example, one of them was something that you created or made, or an instrument you play. So I had kids playing live piano, because now
Oh.
the advantage of being at home is you have your piano right there. So they played piano pieces, they played their violin, they played their instrument, or they sang, or they shared a video of them dancing, or they created a Lego, big Lego thing, and then they showed it to us and explained. So it's very cute. Or they were artists and they painted and they drew and they showed their pictures and how they made it, and what medium they used and what inspired them. So is it just, that was 1 week sharing, was what did you make, create, or did you do, that you did. And so it was interesting, right? So,
Yeah.
and created some things, or they knitted something. So then every week there's a different topic. And so then they share that topic. So that takes about 20-25 minutes. And then like I said, if I'm correcting something, that takes 5-10 minutes. And then the librarian comes in once a week. She does a read aloud. Otherwise, I do read alouds. And then I talk to them. Or I've shared videos of how the world looks in COVID, with animals traipsing through the streets. And so, for them to get an idea. So interesting videos, I will share my screen and then show it to them. So it's basically entertaining them, giving them insights. When 1 month into this whole situation, stay-at-home situation, this dairy farm,
Mm-hmm.
they had a kindness cooler where they put free milk and yogurt and buttermilk and ice cream for poor people to come and take. And they called it the kindness cooler, and they restocked it every day. And so I told my students about that, or about little kids who are doing homeless kits, so things like that. So that's how our 1 hour goes. Then the next half an hour, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have all 33 of my kids in groups of 11 every 10 minutes come in, and I say, okay, so what's going well? What's not going well? Do you have questions on anything? And it's like just a office hours kind of.
Yeah.
And Tuesday and Thursday, I have those kids who are struggling, who are finding it hard to turn in assignments. So now I've turned that office hours into study hall, where they just sit online. I can see them, and everybody's muted, but they're just working, and then they show me what they're doing, so that if they have questions, or sometimes they just need that teacher presence to get that, inspiration to work, because their parents are working, so there's nobody to watch them or spend time with them. And I think that's interesting, that kids miss is adult interaction from a caring adult. And not that their parents are not there, but their parents are very busy sometimes.
Yeah, of
So
course.
teachers were that third wheel, for a tricycle, kind of
Yeah.
supported the whole structure of having another loving adult in your life that cares about you. And so they only get that 1 hour. And if they have questions, so we have an online dialogue, they can ask me questions. So then that's that short hour, that half an hour of office hours. After that, then I have 2 students who are English language learners. So I teach them English. They're from Japan, and their English is limited, so I teach them English. And then after that, I have to take a break, because I've been online with all my kids, and they're gone. And so I tell them to take a break. And then I usually either exercise a little bit or eat something. And then I come back to the screen, and there's a huge to-do list for every subject area: who's done, who's not done. And there's many apps I have to go through to look at, because I can see how many minutes they've spent, or they say they did it, but they're kids. So of course they thought they did it, but they didn't. So the rest of my day is spent checking in who's doing things, who's not doing things. That's one big chunk. And another big chunk is planning for the next day. So there's a math lesson, like you said, I work up till midnight, making a video of the next day's math lesson, giving an answer key for today's lesson, and I have a morning message video, which gives an overview of the day, so they know what to expect. And so then their day is 11 to 12 is math, and then 12 to 1 is lunch, and then 1 to 1:45 is writing. So we're doing answers. It's not the typical writing because of the whole COVID situation. So we had literature, so they're answering questions. Then 1:45 to 2:05 is PE, where they actually have the videos to, move around and stuff. And then 2:05 to 3:05 is the last leg, and it's either science or social studies activities or art. And then 3:05, technically school is done. But our friends who woke up late have to make up on the language arts, or if they were around or they didn't pay attention. So it takes them a much longer time to get that done, and it takes me the whole day to check in stuff. So it's very detailed, it's very time consuming. So my days are 6:30 a.m. to midnight. a typical day. And I'm not getting much else done. I'm at home, but I'm not able to, other than maybe cook a meal,
Yeah.
throw in a load of laundry. I'm not able to do any deep cleaning or, really get
Yeah.
anything done in the house either.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, I'm glad that the kids have different things to look forward to. I had no idea that they still have PE and like art and stuff, and they share. I like the sharing aspect of it because it still makes them feel connected. Like, kind of
Yes.
like a show and tell, like, hey, this is me playing the piano, this is me building a Lego thing. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome, especially for kids. And of course the ones who wake up late have to make up for the language arts later in the day. I was definitely that kid, but kids like to sleep.
No, it's and some of them, they're very alert at night. I see them online and they're
Night
working
owls.
but then in the morning it's hard for them. So it's, I
Yeah.
told them
Everyone's different. Everyone's different.
everyone's different. Yeah. And it's just a proposed schedule, but it's whatever works.
Absolutely. Makes complete sense. And on a micro level, again, this is what you're doing with your students, but I think as an educator, do you see this current crisis as a major setback for young children in the nation in general? Like, do you see this as a major setback?
So I'm going to address it in two different ways.
Okay.
I think um, you can always look at situations positively and negatively, right? So for young children, I have to say, being with their parent is the biggest priority and privilege. Even if they were working parents, they didn't get to see them that much. So they get a lot more time with their parents. So for young children, it's a bonus to have their parents around. The flip side for all ages of children is the lack of social connectivity, because it's those human connections that drive us, that make us who we are. The academics, like I said, can and will happen. This is just a little blip in the bigger scheme of things. If this is going to happen for a few years, absolutely it will take an academic toll, because what I notice is very few, even if they do the work, the quality of the work is very shabby, because they don't, right? Why would kids want to invest in the kind of quality work unless innately they're perfectionists, which is a small group, right?
Yeah.
Kids are, so they want to just finish it and get it over with, and let me know that they're done. But when you're doing math, it's very hard to check by the carelessness of the calculations, which is huge. You could have numbers out there, but you have no idea if it's correct or not, right? Because they're correcting their own work. And the work they send in, like the writing, I've seen a huge fall in the quality of the details in their answers, right? It's not as detailed. So we build up that kind of academic stamina and rigor in class over time. And so it's like pressure, but it just kind of builds up as you go through the year. So for this year, we had 2/3 of them were with us. So I've seen a little decline in this one quarter, in this one trimester, because we built it up and then suddenly it's like a balloon being inflated. But I do know in the longer scheme of things, it won't be such a downfall if the rigor of the online academics is sustainable.
Yeah.
In terms of translating everything. But also the biggest thing is, as teachers, it's our job to teach kids, but now it's the parents almost like become our cohorts in that
Oh yeah, they have
because
to be more involved than they were before.
exactly. And that's hard, because not that they don't love their kids or they don't care, but sometimes time is an issue, right? Because they're so busy with their own full-time jobs, and then they also have to cook and clean the house. They also have other young children to take care of. So then to just sit down and work with a child is very difficult. So my advice to parents would be, this is a new time. Totally, we understand. If you're a working parent, you are going to be a superhuman parent for this time, because not only do you have to like juggle your work and household chores and maybe 2 kids or 3 kids, but you also have to be like a part teacher for your child.
Yeah.
And I can 100% say that the students who have their parents helping them or working with them or guiding them or at least checking in with them are doing better than those who are not.
Yeah, yeah. I think most kids need adult supervision.
Because it's the age,
Yeah,
right? Once older, the check-in doesn't have to be as intense or as much. But when they're younger, I would highly recommend, even if you're working, that they sit next to you so that they're not fooling around. Because a lot of times my boys are going and playing computer games, but the parents are thinking there's online and working. And so, from when you see your child on the computer, you can't just assume they're working. Our friends are doing a lot of different things. So you have to maybe keep them with you. Because I had one child who had, he was 19 assignments behind.
oh my
And the
God.
mother was very grateful because she said, I have 3 kids and I'm working full time. So I wouldn't even know that he's behind unless you told me. So then after I told her, and we actually had a Google Hangout and I gave tips and all that, like write down and, make sure that you check it off, that you finished it. Because it's not like I think I did. You either did or you didn't, right? So the mom had her son sit next to her. So she was working and he was working, but just having the mother's presence next to him, he got everything done. She made him catch up on everything. So they wrote a list and then she checked, okay, so how much have you done here? So it wasn't like she wasn't doing it for him. By the way, I do have parents doing their work, kids work for them. That's a
Like
little,
this is oddly
that's the other
mature.
extreme. That's the other extreme, right? So we can't really grade the children because we don't know how much support they're getting. It's one thing to make them do the work. It's another thing to do the work for them.
Yeah, you
These
have to
kids
find a
couldn't
middle
write
ground.
they couldn't write a complete sentence in front of me. And now it's like, everything is perfect, and the vocabulary is just amazingly crystal clear.
Impeccable.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it's a process. It's very different. I would say support your child. Don't do their work for them, please. And have them write to-do lists and then cross it off. And then have them have a lot of breaks.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be watching the computer so long. And I think but the work ethic is important. The consistency is important. The discipline is important. But I don't think the country as a whole will suffer too much if there's a certain amount of balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that again in the Cupertino area and certain areas in the country where I think that the children are slightly more privileged than other parts of the country where, education system might not be as good and like there's like a bunch of family members living in a very small space and I
Or
think
they don't have the technology,
or
or
they
they
don't
don't
have the
have Wi-Fi.
technology. That's very difficult. And I mean, again, a
Absolutely.
lot of people are stuck at home with their abusers, which is another whole issue. But I think that your students are lucky that way, but I'm sure everyone's struggling in their own unique way. We're all adapting to it. Even for me as a college senior, like my whole graduation plans got thrown off, which is it happens. But again, graduating high schoolers and kids are very sensitive to these kind of things. They want to meet their friends. I think for the first time ever, kids are missing school. Because
Yeah.
you would never imagine, like they drag their feet to go to school. Like your parents got to
Yeah.
pull you out of bed in the morning, or you just don't want to go to school. But now they actually miss school. Like it's
Yeah.
it's been what is it, like 2.5 months now? 2.5 months almost.
I mean, we are all our lives have been turned upside down,
Yeah,
and what we took for granted, the little things in life, like going grocery shopping,
I know that must be
you know,
nice.
going to a birthday party, a get
Yeah.
together. I mean, the little things that you wouldn't even think twice about have
Hmm.
suddenly become like big deals. Um, I mean, even with classrooms, they're thinking of social distancing. So even if kids do come back, I can't have all my 33 kids in one classroom. So they're thinking of having like batches and having a batch A and a batch B, or maybe a batch A, B, and C,
Oh
and
my
then teach the
God.
same thing to 3 different batches. And then how are you gonna, keep the rest of them, occupied when they're not?
Occupied. Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane. The
Yeah.
situation is insane. But what I do have to say is, we as adults are models for kids, and we have to model that we are calm and we're composed. I even taught them some meditation and deep breathing methods. I asked them how many of them were having trouble sleeping. And more than 2/3 raised their hands. And I
Wow.
said, "Are you guys worried?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Oh, about this whole thing." I said, "You know what? Right now, your parents are with you, and you are in your home, and you're safe, and you have enough food, and you have shelter, and I am here for you to explain and, take questions. And so your world has changed, but you're not in pain."
You're
And
okay.
they're
Yeah.
okay. So you have to be grateful for what you are okay with. Enjoy the moment because it's just a passing cloud. It's not a permanent situation. The virus is unknown and for the whole world is in a state of shock, and
Yeah.
it has devastated many communities, and many people have lost their loved ones. But I don't talk about that with the kids because I don't think that's something I should be talking about with children.
It's
They're very happy
too
and young
heavy for them.
and too heavy. But I do talk about like the random acts of kindness that others are doing for each other. I do talk about how they could do fun things at home. So last in our small group meetings, I told them to create a list of sparkles. So I said, what makes you happy, and that what could you do now? Like,
Those are
not
sparkles. What makes you happy?
yeah, what makes you happy now? So like one girl said swimming. I said, really? And she said, yeah, I have a swimming pool in my backyard. I said, that's so cool. So
Go
going
swim.
swimming, yeah, go swim. She loves swimming. So that's a sparkle on her list. And
Hmm.
then somebody else's list, it was like drawing, drawing makes them happy. Another one, it was like helping cook. And another one, it was, a reading. Another one, it was listening to music. So I said, make a list of sparkles. And I would have done it with my class in person. But here I said, okay, make a list of sparkles. And whenever you feel like down or you don't feel you know what to do, go to your list of sparkles and make yourself happy. Because at the end of the day, I said, you can't wait for your birthday to feel happy, right?
Yeah.
Or when somebody gives you something to feel happy. You have to create that happiness for yourself on the inside. And so come up with ways to do that. So you're making your world colorful
Yeah.
and
It
shiny.
starts from within. And
Yeah, start
with
with
kids
it.
and even with adults, I think that when we're stuck or when we're all going through the situation, whether you have to go out and grocery shop, you have to put your life on the line if you're an essential worker. Um, Everyone's trying to find ways to kind of cheer themselves up, even in hospitals and
Yeah,
even in
no,
grocery stores. Everyone's trying, which is important because it's
yeah.
hard. It's hard on everyone. But thank you so much for joining me and for giving me, I mean, not giving me, but giving everyone who's going to watch this an insight into the life of an educator in the California public school system and different ways you're helping your students and how you're adapting and how the advice that you've given to parents because definitely I think the very beginning was like people like Shonda Rhimes and other huge celebrities were tweeting saying, oh my God, teachers really have it hard. Like they were losing their minds teaching their own kids. So definitely interesting to hear your point of view and kind of, also your colleagues' point of view when you talk to them. So thank you so much for being here. And
No,
this is
thank
my
you for having
mom.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it was a pleasure. And teaching is a profession of the heart. It's not easy, but it's so fulfilling to see students grow and shine and see how they change for the better in so many different ways. I wouldn't ever change my job. I love it so much. And I love the kids I work with, and I wish them all the best. I wish all of you all the best, and know that every one of you is here to make a difference and make the world a better place.
Thank you so much.